We're finished, and just one of these deals is completely life-changing, and I'm going to show you exactly how we've done it. So after 8 months, we've finally finished this development of 3 executive bungalows, and I'm going to tell you about the whole journey from start to finish, about how we found the site, how we funded the site, and how we got to this stage with pretty much none of my time involved, which is what development is all about. So with developments, it all starts by finding the land. Now, how do we find this land? We went direct to vendor. So what that means is this land is off market, it's not for sale. In fact, the vendors haven't even thought about selling it. We've actually given them the idea by sending a letter saying, look, we're interested in your garden, it's got development potential, are you interested in having a conversation? So it's as simple as that. So firstly, we identify the plots. We look for opportunities close to where we live. This plot here is literally 5 or 6 minutes from where we live, because we don't want to be travelling up and down the country, managing projects like this and doing work like this, when these opportunities literally are on our doorsteps. And you won't be far away from opportunities like this either. So we send letters out. Sometimes you get a response straight away where people are interested or even not interested. Sometimes you'll get some quite sort of harsh replies, which is to be expected. Developers are sort of labelled a bit greedy for some reason, even though we are providing a much needed service. There's 4 million shortage of houses in the UK, and it's going to take people like me and you to bridge that gap, because the government have clearly failed. They can't build enough houses. They seem to be helping the big developers, but that leaves opportunity for people like us, because there really is. There's nobody doing this sort of stuff. You've got the odd builder who's probably building 1 house a year, or maybe take 2 or 3 years in between their busy building work. But sort of 1 to 10 units is there for the taking. It really is. And just one of these deals, honestly, is life changing. There's sort of £500,000 profit in this project alone. So we send out the letters, the vendors reply, we'll go and have a meeting with them face to face. It's always good to do a face-to-face meeting, because I'm a big believer that people deal with people, and I feel that they get to know you within a very short space of time. What your values are, how trustworthy you are, because this is like a long-term thing. This is not a 10-minute thing. This is probably an 18, 24-month journey of building relationships. You're going to be working next door to their house, so you've got to get on with these people, and I think the vendors understand that. So they're only really going to deal with people that they want to work with, and I feel like this process can't be rushed. You've got to sort of take 2 to 3, maybe 4 or 5 meetings to talk about the price, talk about the planning, what your intentions are. So I'll give you an example. When we sat down with the vendors on this particular site, our intentions was always to build bungalows. We like bungalows. They're the sweet spot. You get a higher sale price £1 per square foot. They're cheaper to build £1 per square foot, and the demand is huge. People are just not building bungalows anymore, so these things tend to sell like hotcakes. So I think all developments is about finding the sweet spot, and it's no different if you're a builder. You'll make money on certain projects, and you won't hardly make any money on other projects, and you've got to find that sweet spot, whether you're building extensions, loft conversions, garage conversions, kitchens, whatever it is. There's a sweet spot in your trade, and you need to find that, and that's really the start of success. So bungalows is a real good one for us, but this was 5 back gardens. Originally we had 4 vendors involved. So we agreed to buy 4 back gardens. They asked us how much we were willing to pay, and we said, well, look, it depends on what we can get on it. And they just said, well, look, you make us a price. If the price is right and what we have in mind, then we'll just do a deal, simple as that. So, we thought of a price that's fair for them and fair for us. That was agreed first time, so fairly straightforward, which is what you want. That's how it goes sometimes. And eventually I asked the person about their 5th garden. I said, do you think they'd be interested in selling? Which is a landlord renting the house out. So to me, that's a done deal, because they're still going to get the same rent. They're going to chop off half the garden, make a chunk of money, and they can use that money to go and buy another property or do whatever they want with. So we managed to get the 5th person involved as well. We went in for planning. Planning was refused first time. Now we went for 5 small bungalows. So sort of 3 beds, 2 beds, because that's what the market wants. Something affordable. There's a lot more people with £300,000 than what there is £500,000 budgets. So we wanted to build what the market needed. The council said no, we have to build 3 big ones. Now, it's not really what we wanted to do. It's not really what the market wants. And look, we're not disappointed with the results because, we have built 3 pretty amazing bungalows. But something of £300,000 will sell a lot quicker than something of £500,000. The benefit here is that not many people build £500,000 bungalows. So we have built a unique niche product that, if the person's looking for that product, there isn't much of a choice. Whereas at a £300,000 bungalow, the buyers have probably quite a bit of choice. There's probably maybe 30 bungalows to go and choose from. Whereas the £500,000 bungalows on a small sort of little exclusive development like this, they might only have, apart from 3 on here, they might only have another 3 to choose from other developments. So it really does restrict the choice for buyers. So once planning was finally approved for the 3 big ones, we listened to the council and went back and gave them what they wanted. Planning was approved within 5 weeks, so very, very quickly. We then went on to building regs, and everything was fairly straightforward. So how do we de-risk our projects when we're buying land without planning permission? We use what's called an option agreement. So an option agreement gives us the option to buy it, but not the obligation. We can do this for as little as £1. So again, I'm pretty sure if any of you viewers are watching this now, you have £1 available. So that means every single person watching this can do this, can do what we've done. We're not doing anything different that no one else can't do once you know what you're doing. So option agreement secured for £1, and that means that we control the land. So even if the people decide to sell the property, the option comes with us, and no one can build on the land, no one can sort of do what we want to do. So we have control of the land, if that makes sense. If we don't get planning, or if we don't get the planning that we desire, we can literally just walk away. But I hear a lot of people, they'll go out and buy a big bit of land, maybe 100, 200, 300,000 pounds of their own money or investors' money, thinking they're going to get planning, and then when they don't, they're stuck with that land. Whereas we have the choice. If we get the planning, we then go on to proceed to pay for it. If we don't get the planning, we can either resubmit again, which is what we did. If we don't get what we want again, we can go to appeal. If we don't get what we want, we can redesign the scheme again. So we've got lots of different options. And if it doesn't really work out, we can walk away. Yes, we've maybe spent a little bit of money and a bit of time, but we're not stuck with a plot of land that we can never get planning on. Okay, so option agreements are really, really good. And again, I teach a lot of people how to do this because, again, once you get planning on a bit of land, there's always an uplift. So I'll give you an example on here. We paid £240,000 for the land. When the land had planning permission on it, it was worth 435, I think it was off the top of my head. And we maybe spent £13,000 to get that to the point of full planning ready to go. So, quite a small bit of investment compared to the up gain. And we could have easily just sold this bit of land on and made 100 grand. And, we could do loads of these because it doesn't really take up much of my time because my architect's doing the planning, my solicitor's doing the legals, my broker's doing the funding. So, this is a very leveraged strategy. And like I say, you can do lots of these. You can manage this from pretty much a laptop anywhere in the world. The main thing is to get face-to-face with vendors. But we've bought land without ever visiting the vendor. So we've bought property before. At the end of the day, some people just want to sell. They're just interested in the price. They're not even interested in meeting you or the little details. They just want to know what they're getting, the certainty of getting it, and they'll sign the contracts, and you'll take ownership of that land or property. So once we have planning, we can then pay for the land. We have a time frame to do that within because that's the agreement. So we pay the vendors the money, we take ownership of the land, and then we're in control when we want to start. Now, we've funded this one ourselves, so we're self-funding developers. What we've done is, over the years, we've built, made some good money, reinvested those profits. At the beginning, we used development finance and private investors, which is what most people do to start off with. It's all factored into the deal. But now we self-fund, so we can pay cash for stuff like this, which gives us an advantage now in the sense of speed. We can show proof of funds. So, you can tend to get more deals agreed once you can get hold of cash. Now, it doesn't have to be your cash. It can be investors' cash. There's lots of different ways to raise money. On my 3-day property developers blueprint, I teach 30 plus ways to raise money. So even if you're trying to raise £300,000, you could say that's 30 different ways to raise £10,000. And collectively, you've got your £300,000 for a purchase like this. Development finance will contribute a large portion towards the purchase. often 50%, so often you only have to find 50% of the actual purchase or the price that you've agreed, which I didn't know at the beginning. And once I learnt that, it was like, actually, that's a game changer, because now I only need half the money I always thought I did, rather than the full amount to do the purchase. And then development finance will give you every single penny for the build, all your fees and stuff like that. So development finance is really good and very lucrative to use. It's designed to help developers, build projects. It's not like you can't go and get this stuff really from a normal bank. They don't like it because they just like solid bricks and mortar and your own house. That's what they like to invest in. Whereas development finance is specifically set up to assist you in buying property, buying land, buying projects, and completing those builds, and then paying them back at the end with all the interest. So you don't even pay for anything during the build. So let's go and take a look in one of the plots, and we'll show you the sort of finishes that we do. One of the things we've just done, so we've got quite a big entrance hall, so we do these on most houses. We like to put these entrance hall mats. When people are coming around to do viewings, sometimes it's been raining, whatever. Sometimes you have gravel driveways, and that dirtiness can still be on the shoes for a little while. So we tend to put these mats in. It allows people to walk in, and it keeps the carpet clean, and they've got a clear place to take their shoes off. And we feel this makes a big difference when people start viewing houses. So nice big entrance hall as you come in. I mean, this is a 5-bed bungalow, so when people are doing viewings, there might be 5, 6, 7, 8 people coming to do the viewing, especially with an agent. The last thing you want is a little tiny cramped entrance hall for them to get in, especially, like I say, especially if the weather's quite bad. We always fully carpet our houses, so carpeted throughout, all the way through. And then in the big open plan rooms, which again we do often, we do LVT, so vinyl tiles. It just makes a nice finish, really clean around the skirtings. So in this particular one, we've got like French doors looking out onto the garden. We also put like a large bifold. So nice big bifold. Garden's all finished. Big patio areas. These really sell well. Whenever we get viewings and we do get buyers, they always say about how big our patios are compared to other properties that they've looked at. And this is one of the things you need to think about when you're building houses. Buyers will go around and look at other properties, maybe before they come to yours, and they might look at yours first and then go somewhere else. And you want yours to stand out and be memorable. You can imagine if you come here and see this big patio, and then you go to maybe one of the big house builders and they've got like 6 paving slabs. They're going to look at that and think, well, where are we going to put the sun lounges? Where are we going to put the barbecue? What if we have friends round? The other thing is we'll always lawn the gardens, so we always turf everything. The reason we turf it is, one, because it looks better, it's finished, it's maintenance free, well, apart from the grass cutting. But if we leave it, it's just going to go a jungle of weeds, and that's the first thing that the buyers are going to see. And they'll look at that and think, well, if you don't care about the garden, do you care about anything else? So for the money and the time it takes to turf the gardens, we think it's money well spent. We just have to come around and cut the grass. This time of year, which is like August, maybe once a month, maybe once every 3 weeks. Earlier on in the year, maybe May, June, once every 2 weeks. Sometimes once a week if it really grows quick. And then come September, October, again, just once every 2 or 3 weeks. But we just come around and give it a good trim, do any weeding if there's any weeds gone in the flower beds, just so that it's presentable when people come around and do the viewings. So nice big open plan kitchen, diner over there, and then this is like your lounge. So, family homes like to have everybody in one place, open plan living. We tend to use the same kitchens in all the properties, so grey is the in colour, it's the trending colour. One thing we do is we put these upstands on, so we very rarely tile a kitchen, and then we'll use these splashbacks. So again, just fairly simple, fairly modern, nice to easy to clean. What you do see is when people do tile under a lot of these worktops, because we put under lights on, if your tiling's not spot on and they put the lights on, because like I said, if you're doing viewings in maybe November, December when it gets darker, the shadows will show. So it really pays to think about little things like that, because they're the things that people will look at as soon as they turn the lights on, and like I say, they'll stick out like a sore thumb. Anything visible with appliances we'll use like Bosch. Anything that is hidden, like fridges and freezers, we'll always just use a different brand. So, still use a good brand, but it doesn't need to be a Bosch fridge freezer, for example. Because we aim at family homes or retired market if it's smaller bungalows, we'll always have a full height fridge, and we'll always have a full height freezer in the utility. Because these are the things that people think about. There could be, like, say, 5-6 people living in here. I've got 2 boys at 22-year-old. They're like eating machines. They're going to get through a fridge every 2 days. So the bigger these things are, the better. It means that they can go shopping and keep everything stocked up. Into a utility room. Again, we try and do a real decent sized utility room. Boilers in that cupboard all boxed in, which is just a gas combi boiler in this case. We always use decent sinks as well. So we used to use the stainless steel sinks. We've just stopped using them now for the bit of extra money. The composite sinks look a lot better. They last a lot better. And I feel like, as a developer, I think it's worth just spending that little bit more money to give a lot better finish and a lot better product. This is not something that the big house builders do, because they're on the economies of scale. If they can save 20 pence on a door handle and they're doing, 400,000 door handles a year, that's a lot of money. For us, if it's a case of spending another £100 or £150 on a sink, and we've got 3 bungalows here with 2 sinks per house, it's not a lot of money on the scheme of things. At the end of the day, look, this is your reputation, and you want to deliver a good product. This is part of the reason a lot of people want to get into developments, is that they feel like they can build a lot better house than the big house builders. They can put their personal touch on. They see things that they would put in that are not put in from other developers, and they use this opportunity to do that. They'll put in better doors like we do, better internal doors, rather than the 6-panel, grain doors that you see in most houses still. They're just not nice. They've got a bit of an old-fashioned stigma. We tend to use a lot of these, like door-doing doors. Sometimes we'll use oak, nice solid doors. We found that the oak can sometimes make, or the grey floors can sometimes make that oak look a bit dirty. So in this case, we've just gone back to doing white, which seems to work quite nice. Again, when you're doing internal trades, there's always somebody that will damage something or get fingerprints on it or do whatever before it's got the oil on it. And in this case, you can just quickly, repaint the door, or they're not as expensive as the oak doors. So if you have to replace one, it's not the end of the world. One thing we tend to go for on a lot of these houses as well now is underfloor heating. So the whole house, the whole bungalow's got underfloor heating throughout, all controlled by these thermostats. And then we've got a manifold tucked away in a cupboard. So underfloor heating is really nice. And again, in the winter when we're doing viewings, we'll always have the heating on low, so that people walk in and straight away it feels nice. When you're selling houses, if someone's freezing outside waiting to do a viewing and they come in and it's freezing cold in the house, it's just, honestly, the difference it can make by having that heating on can be the difference between a sale and not. So here we are in the master bedroom. It's a good sized master bedroom. This is, the people who buy the bungalows or the houses, they're the decision makers. And the master bedroom is one of the things that's going to sell the property to them. What does it look out on? What sort of space have they got? Is it away from all the other bedrooms? Now, in this case, we've designed it so that the master bedroom is the furthest away from all the other bedrooms. So if you've got kids, they're down one end of the bungalow, you're down the other end of the bungalow, you feel like you've got a bit of privacy, you feel like you're on your own. You can make as much noise as you want, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, we just find that separating those rooms works quite well. We'll always put an ensuite in a master bedroom as well. Again, built-in showers. One thing we do is use these aqua panels. So again, we've used tiles in the past. We've got aqua panels in our own house. They're so easy to clean. And I think when people come around and look at this sort of stuff and they go to look at somewhere else, they'll look at this and think, oh, that'll be easy to clean. And then they go back and look at the other properties and see all the tiles and think mold, dirt, hard cleaning, maintenance. So again, these little things, they look better, they're hard wearing, easy to clean, better maintenance. And again, that can be a little buying decision. One thing we've chosen to do on this house again is we've got darker colour towel rails. So we used to use white or chrome. We tend to go for darker ones now. Built-in vanity units. So again, we go for like a high gloss. Again, we'll pay a little bit more money for stuff like that. we think it goes a bit of a better way. In like I say, these are the things that people notice when they come here to go into somewhere else. We talked about the cupboard with the manifold in it. So, putting a decent cupboard in a house, we always incorporate this into the design because, people need places for their ironing board, coats, shoes, hoovers. In the cupboards, we'll always put a charging point because, again, most hoovers now run off, they're rechargeable. So we always think about these little things, and like I say, I think these little things make a massive difference to when someone's looking to buy a property. The other thing we do is we'll always design a place with a study. So since COVID, lots more people working from home now, lots of people running their own businesses, and an office sells. Now, it goes the same with a playroom. If you've got an open plan living area and everyone's in that space, it's just nice to have another room where the kids can go and play, they can leave their toys out, you can just shut the door at night when you go to bed, and you don't have to worry about cleaning it up too much. So studies, playrooms, they work really well on the larger properties. This particular one here, on all 3 bungalows, we've actually incorporated another ensuite. So normally we just have one ensuite, one main bathroom. But for this one again, exactly the same, built-in shower, 1200 wide, aqua panels, built-in vanity unit, flush toilet, nice bit of flooring. Because again, as families grow older, it's a lot harder for someone to leave home at a younger age now and go and buy their own property. So we're finding that people are staying home longer and longer and longer, and a lot of those families are now looking for like an adult to live at home, and if they've got their own ensuite, then it means that the younger people can use the bathroom. So we're finding a second ensuite really helps with sales as well. So as we come outside, you can see that we've landscaped all the gardens. So we've got a variety of plants all the way down there, all the new fences up, 2-metre high fence, and again on the front of the gardens, all turfed, all hedged. We've had to put some trees in, which is like a planning condition, but a variety of bushes which will attract a variety of wildlife. So planners like to see things that are going to attract bees, butterflies, just like I say, certain trees attract certain species, and they can be a planning requirement. But overall, it will make the property look nice, because when all this is first built, obviously it looks a bit rigid, a bit concrete, a lot of stone and stuff like that. So by putting some plants in, they soon grow. Within just a matter of a month, you'll be surprised how quick the bushes start growing out and soften the landscaping. So, but you can imagine, if you're looking to buy a property and you turn up, and everything's all done nice, everything's neat, everything's clean and tidy, compared to turning up on somebody else's site, which is probably half finished. There's rubbish everywhere, there's vans parked everywhere. So we've found again that if you can finish properties and sell them a bit later on, ready to move into, you'll sell quicker anyway. So if you sell too early, people are not in the buying position, people are not sold their properties, it's very hard to time some certain stuff. So we've just found that, finish the properties, get them done, get them on the market just before, and it sits on the market for a few weeks empty, but it just means that the people can move straight into it with no hold-ups, no delays, and then you can time things a lot better if you're looking to move on to the next site. So originally on the planning, the road had block paving, permeable block paving because of suds. So the council are getting pretty hot on water, draining away. Now instead of putting a load of drainage in here, which is expensive, time-consuming, excavations, etc., we've gone for a permeable tarmac. So we changed the planning. That was done within a matter of a couple of weeks. Well, I think it's about a week actually, the decision. So very quickly, and we've used the same guys several times now. So they'll come in and put a base coat, and then when we're all finished, they'll come in and put a top coat. But it looks really clean. What it also means, if it does rain, there's no puddles anywhere, because again, you can see this on a lot of sites where the tarmac's not been done the best or the drainage is not the best, and you can sometimes get puddles, which if people go and do a viewing on a wet day, it could put them off. But nice clean job. They do this within a matter of sort of a day and a half, so it's very quick, very quick to do. It's leverage, it's done for us, which is what we like. Big thing that does sell the properties as well is garages. So we tend to put 5-metre insulated roller doors, electric roller doors, a good sized garage. Obviously you've got a bit of storage in the loft. We've got a tap, but we put these inside the garage so that they don't get frost and blow up. So we put those inside the garage if people want to put the hose pipe in there. We'll always put some sockets in there as well, because like I say, for, you know, not being sexist, but the man likes to choose a garage. He's looking for somewhere to put his cars or a little workshop or something like that. And the females tend to come in and they look for kitchens, entertainment areas, garden space. And, you know, understanding that is key when designing properties and building them. You know, and if you tick those boxes, you're more likely to sell properties a lot quicker than sticking on the market. So leading up to the entrance door, double row of slabs. That's to suit wheelchair access, so you've got to be flush going into the front door, no more than 25 millimetres, just so a wheelchair can get in and out. A 900 doorway. One of the things we do always do is we use the same materials. So we use the same bricks, we use the same roof tiles, we use the same windows, the same colour. This takes a lot of decision making away. You know, this sort of type of materials that we use, it works quite nice. We've got the stone sills on the front, like I say, the same colour garage doors. It just works for us, it sells nice. People recognise other sites that we've built. So often when people come here, they were like, did you build a site up so-and-so? Did you build some houses there? Because they recognise that. It's almost like our brand now of using this red multi-brick, the agate grey windows and doors, and just the finish that we do. So it just keeps things simple. You know your costs. It takes away a lot of decision making. And it's a replicable model, and that's what you want to do. You know, when you're chopping and changing things constantly, you're having to learn new things, find out which materials work. You know, is there a supply issue? So little things like that can make a big difference. And like I say, it works for us. So if you are looking to become a developer and sort of build your own houses, you know, have something in mind that you like. Find out if it's accessible. Find out if it's the right price. And if it works, just stick to it. Don't sort of change the mould. So one of the things that we get noticed for a lot is we don't use fascias and soffits. We do detailed brickwork. We do detailed brickwork along the eaves. We do it all the way up the gables. We'll use a dry verge, dry ridge. We just feel like you know, it makes the properties look a lot nicer. You know, fascias and soffits, they're maintenance. It's another product that can get damaged. It's another trade, got to come in and do it. It also costs a lot of money now, plastic. And you know, if your property's been sitting here a couple of months while you've been finishing off the work, especially when you're finishing off things like roads and stuff, they can be filthy, like really dirty. So, you know, we just feel detailed brickwork looks a lot better. And like I say, we get a lot of comments on it. I also feel like it makes the properties look a bit more established. You know, if you've got a lot of fascias and soffits all the way around here on this whole site, they're going to stick out and be quite noticeable compared to being softened and toned in with the multi-blend brick that we tend to use. So, round to the garden, we've got an area here that we leave for a shed. So we make sure this is gravel, it's maintenance free. Some people like to, let's say, put a little gate there and then use this as their dog area. So again, where we have room to put a little gravel area, we'll do that, and it's either for dogs, sheds, but people tend to notice that thing straight away as well. So service door for the garage, again, composite. This is the colour we use, agate grey. And like I say, just really, really clean and tidy. Very, very simple. Now, I know we get a bit of criticism on the slabs. People saying, why don't you use porcelain? Why don't you use Indian stone? You know, does it come down to cost? I don't know. You know, these just work for us. Like I say, nice big patios. We never get any criticism from buyers. They just look at the size of the patios that we've installed. If it was probably a more expensive house, yes, maybe we'd use porcelain or Indian stone, something like that. But like I say, we've done it on loads of houses. It works for us, and we don't have any issues. It's a nice sized garden. As you can see, nice and private, nice and sunny, pretty much south facing. You know, you can imagine, like, if a buyer comes around here on a day like today, you can't hear nothing, there's no noise, no road noise, because we're set back behind the houses that we bought the land from. There is nobody overlooking the properties. And they're going to be able to picture themselves sitting out here, maybe having a barbecue, just reading a book, having a coffee, whatever in the mornings. You know, no other house is looking in the garden. A lot of these new sites, certainly the ones that we used to build, you know, you build one house and then you've got 10 just looking right in, and they can see what you're having for breakfast and everything. There's zero privacy. It's not the sort of things we like to build. So we tend to try and find plots with you know, nice locations, nice privacy, good parking, peace and quiet, south-facing rear gardens. Again, we probably wouldn't build houses if they had north-facing rear gardens, you know, because that would put people off. We don't get a lot of sun in the UK as it is, and the last thing you need is to come out on a nice sunny day to do a viewing, and you think, well, oh, I'm going to be sat in the shade in my garden. That's not very good. I've got to go and sit out in the front of my drive, you know, just go and get some sun. And little things like that, honestly, make a big difference. And the reason I've learnt that is because from when I used to build houses for the big developers years ago, they used to do a lot of viewings while we were still building them and stuff like that. And you could see the stuff that made people literally turn around and get back in the car and go. You know, they'd like the house, and then there'd be just these 1 or 2, 3 things that would stick out, and they'd be like, right, that's it, you've just killed the deal. You know, that one thing has made the difference between them buying that house and not. And some of that was quite often north-facing gardens. A lot of 3-story houses now have kitchens and living rooms upstairs. People come there and think, yeah, but I've got to drag all my shopping up there. You know, if I want to go and sit in my garden, I've got to make a cup of tea upstairs, bring it downstairs and go out into the garden. So 3-story houses, we don't really build them. You know, we just tend to find that they're hard to sell. Chalet bungalows as well, we have built some before. People don't like, you know, they can't find where they're going to put the wardrobes. So all these little things you have to think about. And that's really why we like the bungalows, because they do just work and they sell pretty quick. So one of the best things about being a developer is leverage. Now, a few years ago, I used to be a busy tradesman, working for customers, you know, 80 to 100 hours a week, running around, fetching materials, doing quotes, invoices, chasing for the money, organising labour, pretty much multi-trade, because, you know, it's hard to get good labour these days, or sometimes you might just need a plumber for an hour, and rather than pay them 150 quid, you might as well just do it yourself. So we can, you know, become very busy. We can get a bit obsessed with doing everything ourselves because we have a certain standard and we don't feel people can meet that standard. But, you know, one of the things I was taught from a mentor is that, you know, look, I've run out of time to earn any more money because I'm doing 80 to 100 hours a week, and I'm trading that time for money, whether that's an hourly rate, a day rate, you know, even on a price. You get paid the price work for doing the work. So you're still trading your time for money. And he said to me, look, if you want to earn more money, you have to leverage, because you can only be in one place at one time. So on this particular site, I had 2 gangs of bricklayers. So the bricklayers did the work. I'm a bricklayer by trade, for those that you don't know. And, you know, look, I don't lay bricks. I get people to do that. That allows me to go on and do other stuff. And in this particular site, it took around 8 months to build. And I probably only worked on this site for around about 5 to 6 weeks, right at the beginning. From then onwards, I was away pretty much nearly every week abroad for 6 months. So I had lots of trips planned. I was in Jordan. I ran 2 retreats in Cyprus for 3 weeks. I went to Cape Verde, Iceland, Thailand, Dubai, Maldives. I was in Tenerife for 2 weeks running more retreats. Yeah, there's quite a few other places. I went to Spain looking for a property in Spain. So I was doing all that while the work was being done here. Now that comes down to getting good guys who know what they're doing, guys that you can trust. But look, you know, I kept in communication with my phone, laptop. I can organise most of this from my laptop and phone anywhere in the world. It takes me around about, on average, because some days will be longer than others, I don't think no more than 10 minutes a day to manage a site like this. Now you might think that's crazy, but you know, I have to send my builders merchants a list of materials that need ordering and when they need delivering. That doesn't take long at all, because we've already got the schedule of materials before we even start the site. Tradesmen, I can just send a WhatsApp message. So literally 10, 15 minutes in the morning, a few WhatsApps, a few emails, and that's it. And you can manage that anywhere in the world. And you know, you just keep a check-in on your phone in case you get something come up later on in the day. Some people might have a question. Because we get individual trades in, like we get the carpenters in, the bricklayers, the plumbers, etc. They know what they're doing. They're on a price. They get on with the work. We just make sure that all the materials are here, get delivered to site. And yeah, you can manage this stuff. I mean, I went to see a developer yesterday, Rob. He's got a busy domestic building company doing extensions. And he was building 3 houses. He came on my 3-day property developer's blueprint. So he's building 3 houses now. And like he said, you know, running the 3 houses is a lot less work than doing, you know, even 1 extension, because you don't have customers to deal with. It's bigger stuff. You can leave the trades to get on with it. They're on a price. So he says like less work, less stress, but 10 times the profit. So he's gradually winding down his domestic work to concentrate on more on developments, which is what I did. I eventually gave up all my customer work, just stuck to developments. For me, this really suits me fine in the sense of, I make a lot more money, I spend a lot less time working, I can leverage other trades to do the work. We tend to work in the summers, so we'll build these in the summers, and then during the winter, we will do things like planning, legals, we'll deal with building regs, we'll look for more plots, we'll negotiate. Well, I was away in the Alps as well last year while this was being built in September, and I actually bought another plot of land while I was sat in the Alps without even viewing it. I didn't even see the plot, but from Google Earth, from a bit of due diligence, checking a few things with my architect, you can buy stuff from abroad. And look, at the end of the day, you've got the chance to pull out the deal if it doesn't work. But sometimes you have to strike. Once you find a bit of land, you can negotiate, and then you can start doing your due diligence and that. And if it doesn't work out, you can always pull out or renegotiate if you find something that comes up that's going to cost some money, like contamination or something. This site had contamination when we bought it. Originally, they wanted us to dig out a whole metre deep, so take away a metre of soil and bring in uncontaminated soil, so certified soil. That was going to cost a fortune. Like, it was crazy. And the report said there was only contamination in the top part of the soil. So we said, well, can't we just replace the topsoil, like as in 300 mil? And they said yes. So that's just saved us digging out 700 millimetres of soil that we didn't need to. Then we sent some soil off to our haulier. He said, it's going to cost a fortune because it's got asbestos in it. We said, well, where's the asbestos on the report? He went, well, oh yeah, actually, I've sent the wrong report off. By mistake, I've sent somebody else's off. There is no asbestos. So that saved us an absolute fortune. And in the end, we only got rid of 6 lorry loads of contaminated soil off this site. So, and like my geologist said, it's not really contaminated. Someone had had a fire on here. It just so happened that one of the trial holes picked up the contaminated soil. So it's very isolated. And in theory, we could have just dug 1 metre out and got rid of that 1 metre. But the powers that be, the way the system works, they just, They sort of do it out of autonomy. This is how it is. It's 1 metre out, new soil back in, rather than looking at it on an individual basis. But look, once you know what you're doing, you can really reduce these things down, reduce these costs, solve the problems quicker and better by using logic rather than sometimes just autonomy. And these are the things I help my developers with all day long: saving money, solving problems, getting on site, doing their developments without the issues that other developers have, and taking these tradesmen off the tools to become their own developer and freeing up their time. So one of the things that we did different on this site that we've never had to do before is we built raft foundations. This was done by the structural engineer. So structural engineer designed the foundations, and then building regs approve them. And the reason we had to do that was because at the back there we've got a big conifer. We've got a few more conifers down the side there, and then down this end of the site there's conifers down the back of that one, even though they're not very big. Conifers suck up a lot of water, which can create a lot of shrinkage in the soil or expansion when it gets wet. And there is a willow tree down there. So because those trees are in the neighbouring gardens, the structural engineer, they have to factor this stuff in. And what a lot of them are doing now is they're really over-engineering everything because their insurance has gone up quite a lot of money. And if it fails, then it can point back to the structural engineer. So what they're doing is they're over-engineering stuff. There can be an additional cost to that, and that cost is passed on to the developer. And it just sort of protects them. And then building regs will approve it based on the structural engineer's designs. So again, the structural engineer takes all the liability if it was to fail. Now, these rafts are pretty big, a lot of steel work involved in them. We had to make up all the formwork. So the first one took quite a bit of time to do. Second one was probably around 25-30% of the time, because we had the formwork made up that we could just transfer over to the other plot. Plot 2 in the middle, we just did block and beam. So we was away from the trees, no sort of concerns about the shrinkage or heave of the soil. But when we worked out the costs, both foundations were the same money. So whether it was the raft foundation or the block and beam foundation, both came in at around about 25 grand. Block and beam one took around about 2 weeks. I think this raft took maybe 3 weeks. first raft took almost 5 weeks. So quite a bit, like I say, quite a bit of time on the first raft. Really big things to get done. Learnt a lot doing them in the process. So we sort of enjoyed it, because I do like enjoying in the process. And once you learn stuff, you've got it. It's there for life. So education and learning things and fixing problems and solving problems and avoiding problems. It's all very, very valuable stuff that you can take forward from development to development. I'd probably say we learn something new on every single development. They're all different. The rules and regulations are changing all the time. We've just had biodiversity come in early this year. A lot of unknowns in that still, even with the ecologists and the planning department. There's still a lot of uncertainty because the government have thrown these rules in without really thinking about how they're going to implement it. As usual, that's typical government. But my biodiversity came into my Property Developers Academy this week. She came in and talked about everything she knows, gave us some really good tips, certainly on looking for land, on what to look for on land and what things are going to cost before you buy it. And there was a few things there that could really catch a few developers out. But look, you don't know what you don't know. And this is why I teach this stuff, and that's why I surround myself with, my power team like that. So I have really good brokers, solicitors, consultants like biodiversity, contamination, geologists. Once you've got this power team of consultants that you work with and behind you, you can leverage this team of people to make sure that, you tap into their 20, 30, 40 years, even 50 years of experience. And again, there might be 4 or 5 in that team, so there could be 200 or 300 years of experience to arm you to go forward. And there's a lot of people out here that will do developments on their own. And like I say, they'll buy land that they can't get planning on. They'll buy land that they then get issues. I had one the other day where it fell out. It just fell out again, actually. So when I say it's fell out, I mean it's fallen through. And because people are going into it, buying it, thinking that it's a done deal just because it's got planning. And then once they start looking into things, they realise that there's issues that either can't be solved or it's going to cost money. And then they pull out, but they pull out when they've spent thousands and thousands of pounds. So the stuff I teach on my 3-day course is to avoid all this stuff. Do your due diligence before, tap into all this information before, learn what to look for, so that you can almost get to the point of buying a site for no money in, knowing that it's a done deal and there shouldn't be any issues. And if there is, we have ways of protecting ourselves if those issues are to arise later on at no cost to us. So it's just really, really, really important to learn this stuff. But look, what comes with say a higher risk strategy than doing buy to lets is bigger rewards. It's as simple as that. So you can do a buy to let and go and get £250 a month before you get taxed on it, before the tenant doesn't pay their rent, before the boiler breaks down, and you've got to leave a load of money into those properties. Or you can come and do developments. A lot of my guys are doing them without using their own money. So they're raising private investment combined with development finance. I have a really, really good brokerage that can get people money that no other broker can get. So that's, certainly puts them in a better position than most people. And, I've got developers from all walks of life. I get a lot of tradesmen who are busy on the tools like I was, just had enough of like working crazy hours, coming home at night after a day's work on the tools to, like I say, then start looking at jobs, pricing them up. And they just look at it and say, well, do you know what? I'm doing the same work on a development, if not less, than doing all this domestic work. And it's true. The difference is they're going to make 10, 15, 20 times the money they're earning running their own business. So I get a lot of tradesmen come over. I get a lot of property investors that have been doing portfolio stuff for a long while and getting nowhere, adding maybe 1 to 2 properties a year. But then the tax changes are taking all that extra money away. Then the more properties they get, the more hassle they get, the bigger the job they create. This isn't about creating a job. For me, I spend 6 months abroad a year, and I spend 6 months managing a site for other people doing the work, and I get to have a pretty good life. So I've gone into this for the work-life balance, not to create myself a job managing loads of properties and becoming a landlord. In fact, I've been selling off my properties over the last few years just because I can put the cash to better use in supporting my sons in doing their own developments. But also, I go away, my phone doesn't ring, I don't have tenants ring me up, I don't have customers ringing me up, and people are amazed, and again, I was with Rob yesterday, filming on his site of 3 houses, and his phone just constantly ringing, and he said, quiet days, 40 to 50 phone calls. And that's one of the reasons I got out of that, because, You do not switch off from work. Customers have no problem ringing you up at 9 o'clock at night, asking you about something on one of their jobs, which is irrelevant, you know. So lots of reasons I got into developments. I didn't want to knacker my body up as well. You know, I saw a lot of people in their 50s just broken, you know, and with no way out. And I just thought that I don't want to be at that point by the time I get well in my 50s, which I'm in now. You know, I'm in good shape now. I'm healthy. I go to the gym most mornings, exercise, and yeah, lots of reasons I got out of doing what I was doing to get into developments. And you know, look, the first development might not necessarily make you £1 million. I've got a couple of people that are making 7 figures on their first deals. But I always say to people, look, you know, just try and make 100 grand on your first deal, and you very rarely make anything less than 100,000. And if you was, I would probably avoid, say, doing it. You know, only find a deal that makes 100 grand. So I've got a couple of guys that are making 200,000-300,000 from building one unit, so one house, which is phenomenal. You know, 5 to 6 months work for building one house. It's life-changing money, you know, and they're not even building it themselves. They're getting other people to come and do the work, and they just sort of manage it. They've got the businesses that they run on the side of things. You know, and what difference does that make to you? You know, what difference would £100,000 make to your life right now? Would it mean that you can quit doing what you're doing? Would it mean that you can go into developments full time? Now, by the time you get your first deal, you will have a pipeline of deal 2, deal 3 lined up anyway. You'll have more investors lined up. So, you know, even by the time you're making that first 100 grand, the next 250 grand is just around the corner, and then the next £500,000 is just around that corner, and then it's the £1 million around the corner from that. So it's just a process, takes you 2 or 3 years, but you're going to be working in the next 2 or 3 years anyway. So you might as well spend 2 or 3 years working on something like this and make a difference to your life, make that money, be in control of your life, have choices. I put a quote on my social media this morning saying, money gives you options. A lack of money gives other people your options, which means you have to work for them and you have to give your time up, and they dictate how much you get paid. Whereas if you've got the money from doing developments, you have the options to do what you want to do. So quite an important quote. I do like quotes because they do make sense, and like I say, they're logical, and they are reminders of why we need to sort of get our finger at our backside and make those changes now, rather than look back in 5 or 10 years' time and regret and say, if I'd have been doing that 10 years ago, I would have been there, but now. Because time's going to tick away, whether you work or don't. It's as simple as that. So, if you're interested in learning this, you know, learning how to become a property developer, learning how to avoid making the mistakes that other developers do, you know, learning how to get off those tools, free up your time, make life-changing money from just one deal, there is a link in the bottom below, in the comments below. We do an online course, so it teaches you how to find the land, how to fund the land, how to go through the planning process, how to negotiate with vendors, so how to get deals accepted a lot cheaper than what they're on the market for, how to get them built on time and on budget, and you know, how to make this life-changing money. So there's an online course that you can click on. It's just 997 plus VAT. It's nothing. You know, for the money you can make in return for that education, that is such a tiny, tiny investment, and you've got it for life. You know, you can watch that content over and over as much as you want. If you want to come and attend a 3-day live event person where it's just myself teaching, you can get to ask me as many questions as you want. There's obviously great networking opportunities. We keep these groups fairly small, so it's personal, and so I get to know every single person, and so I can help them better and prepare them better for when they leave after the 3 days. Again, there's a link in the comments. I become good friends with a lot of people that do attend these 3-day events. Some of them come on to do mentoring with me for many years. Some of them come on to attend life-changing retreats as well. And we become very good friends, and we socialise, we go out for dinner, we go on holiday together, because we're like-minded people. We have a lot in common in terms of like hobbies and golf and stuff like that. So if you're interested in doing that, click on the comments below. Any questions, put them in the comments below. It's me personally that will always get back to you. But look, you could be just one development away from a very, very different life. Anybody can do what I'm doing. They really, really can. I'm just created a system that has been copied from other people, as in like the big house builders. They find the land, they get it funded, and they get it built. We've broken it down into an 8-step system, very, very detailed. If you follow the system, you get those results. It's as simple as that. And I'll leave you with one thing. Many people think that by doing the same thing, they're going to get a different result. So as in, I'll just work harder, I'll work weekends. You're still trading your time for money. You've got to do something different to get a different result. And you've got to work on the strategy that is proven to give you that money, to give you the time, to give you the freedom, compared to doing what everyone else is doing. Now if you're a busy tradesman on the tools, let's say you're an electrician or a plumber or a bricklayer, whatever you are, look at all the other electrician, bricklayers and plumbers. If they're 10, 20, 30 years older than you, that will be you in 10, 20, 30 years time. You'll be no different than them, because that's what you do. You're copying them. Success leaves clues, and those bricklayers, plumbers and electricians are leaving the exact clue of where you'll be in 10, 20, 30 years time. Go and look at the developers. They're all in the top FTSE 250 for a reason, because they give the market what it wants. And if you can become more valuable, you will get paid a lot more money, because you're providing a more valuable service, a product that is in demand. And like I said earlier in the video, there is an opportunity for anybody who wants to build 1 to 10 units, because nobody is hardly doing this. And look, there's less competition at the top. That's the reality of it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to see more of this sort of stuff, let me know. We're about to start a new site very, very soon. If you've got anything, comments, if you want to ask me any questions, put them in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe, because we've got lots more stuff coming. We put loads of case studies on from people that were sat just where you are watching this video right now to start doing their own development. So you can always go to developinghomes.co.uk, look at case studies, and you'll see loads of people on there, just like me and you, ordinary people getting extraordinary results, and changing their lives through property development. So hopefully we'll see you at one of the events or on the online course very, very soon, doing developments like this.